Hola! Welcome to the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club with your host, the man from the land of Lincoln Heights, that is, David Hernandez, and from the city of San Fernando, Jeffy Gergenti. You heard it right, Hispanic Republicans. Why? Because brown is the new red, Republican red. So listen up and hear what being a Republican is really all about. Faith, family, and free enterprise. It's time to wake up and see how the chorizo is made and smell the menudo. And who knows, you just may be a Republican after all.
Well, David, speaking of menudo, we've got a menudo contest coming up.
That's right. It's coming up.
We're going to take it, so just so you guys know.
June 25th, and that's going to be at the Mayflower Club in North Hollywood, which is right there, Victory Boulevard near Vineland, across from, dare I say, Target.
What? What? Did you say Target? What is wrong with you?
That just opened the door into the segue. I mean, first we had Bud Light. What did they lose? About $10 billion? Yeah.
Well, I guess Target lost $9 billion in the space of like 24 hours or something. And then I read that they sent an email out to every single employee about the LGBTQ, whatever they were doing, and that they were now moving into the next month like it was no big deal. And I'm like, you lost $9 billion. How's that not a big deal?
How did the stockholders feel about it?
That's a good question.
And then so we had Bud Light, Target. Well, let's see. Was Target before or after the Dodgers?
Bud Light was before the Dodgers. Target was both. No, the Dodgers came first because we talked about it last week, right? And then Target,
and Target. Now the Dodgers, and what people don't realize is that we just got
what happened?
We just got a text to say that the volume is too low.
The volume's too low. Well, we'll just keep talking while you figure out volume.
You hear that, Sal? The volume's too low. We'll go ahead and do that.
So yeah, we have all these wonderful businesses that are going woke, and they think it's okay. They're going broke, but it doesn't seem to be enough because Bud Light, I guess there was somebody on Instagram, I forget who it was, they put out a cooler of free beer. Mm-hmm. It's a free beer for everybody, Bud Light. They said they could not give it away. And nobody knew what the guy was up to. He just wanted to see if anyone would take the Bud Light. Nobody would take it. So if that doesn't speak volumes to people about...
Galleons. It speaks galleons.
Gallons?
Galleons.
Galleons. Well, it speaks 55-gallon drums.
Well, you know what? With the Dodgers and...
Okay, but let's back up a second, though, David, because you've had an issue with the Dodgers since way back in the day when they took that stadium over. So let's talk about that first.
Well, but we'll get back to that because we're talking, all this talk about reparations, and I'm all for it. Reparations start at Chavez Ravine. And all of the families that were thrown out of Chavez Ravine, dragged down the stairs by... Pregnant by
Sheriff's Department.
And that is like, okay, you know what? It's time for some reparations.
But let people know what it was, because there's a generation out there that have no idea about this.
Well, and it's the perfect timing because the Dodgers are doing what they can to fix up their image, is that Chavez Ravine was basically a Mexican community. They had little markets, they had... people
and where was it, though?
Where Dodger Stadium is right now.
Thank you. That's what our listeners need to know. We know where it is, but I think some of our listeners
And so
don't.
the city of Los Angeles took the property by eminent domain and said, we're going to build low-income housing. So we're going to move you people out so we can build low-income housing for the poor.
Sounds familiar.
And so they moved them out. And
they built Dodger Stadium.
And then they turned around and sold it to the O'Malley family and brought them from Brooklyn here to Los Angeles. And so... if the family I think it was Manhattan Beach, or that had that black family that had their land taken.
Oh yeah,
and they recently had to given back by the county of Los Angeles,
and then they went and sold it back to them at a premium.
Yeah. Well, and that's fine
and
because hey, that's fine. So all we're saying is that the O'Malley family, I think, still owns the parking lot. So it's not that we're going to give everybody, every Mexican in Los Angeles season tickets. What we want is the descendants, and because there are people that are still alive that were in Chavez Ravine, let's give them 10% of the parking.
And let their family, and you know what? Let their families have it also.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When they pass, let that continue with the families, because Lord knows the Dodgers have made how many billions of dollars in parking fees since they acquired that property.
Yeah, and what we'll do going into the future, because we have some of our club members have family members who were in Chavez Ravine at the time that happened. So we'll get back to that.
You know what? Real quick, let's talk about what they're doing with that now. So now our wonderful Mayor Bass is now deciding that she wants to take out the lanes going to Dodger Stadium and turn them into bike lanes. So if you think you can't get to Dodger Stadium now, just imagine what that's going to be like.
Well, but they really won't need these lanes
that's what they
after
said.
The Catholic Church gets done with them.
There you go, David.
So it's like, you know what, they'll have rapid transit. Maybe they'll do like a people mover or a light rail going into Dodger Stadium. Well,
you know what? So I was watching something on Instagram, and there was a video where it was a baseball game, and it came on, and they said, "Yeah, there won't be the national anthem." And the people were like, "What?" And so all the fans started singing the national anthem, and then someone put in the quote, so this video is not in its entirety. They actually had technical difficulties with playing the national anthem, so they were going to pass on it. And the fans said, no, we're going to sing the national anthem. So with that, you look at that and you say, okay, if your fans are willing to sing the national anthem, they had a hard time getting it together, but when they got it together halfway through the song, they were all in sync. It's beautiful. And you listen to that and you go, okay, so if they're willing to sing the national anthem when they have technical difficulties, how much do you really think they're going to allow the woke left to take over their sport?
Well, and reality is this would have been the 10th year of Pride Night at Dodger Stadium. So having Pride Night was not a problem.
Nobody cares about the Pride Night. I support that also.
But it was the individual group that
they're awarding. They're giving them an award.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is that when all this talk about hate and anti-hate groups and stuff, to give an award to a group who is
hateful towards Catholics,
right? And so that's the problem. But you know what? There are so many other incredible success stories in spite of all of the stuff that's going on, and we're fortunate to have our guest Pastor Kris come back.
Yes,
I'm back.
He's back. He said he would be back, and he came back. And thank you, Rudy, for coming with him.
Yeah, no problem.
And why don't we recap for our audience who you are and how you became a pastor, because that's a very important part of the story of who you are and what you've done, because it's pretty remarkable, and other things that you can do for others and that you are doing for others.
Yeah, so I'm Pastor Kris. I'm pastor of the church Victory Outreach West Valley, a local church which is part of an international ministry under the Victory Outreach International. And I've been pastoring for 5 years now in the San Fernando Valley right there. Just got a new building right in Canoga Park. Rudy's a part of our church as well. And we're right there, just got a new building. We're reaching the community, reaching gang members, drug addicts. A big part of what we do within our ministry is rehabilitation. But not just rehabilitation, but reaching families and seeing people's lives restored, healed, and delivered. And there's nothing like it. It's exciting.
Now, is this a in-house? I mean, can people go there and is it?
How does it work? Is what he's asking.
No, can they live there?
Yes, yeah. So they live with me right now. I have 8 men in our home, and I'm located in Northridge. Beautiful house, and it's absolutely free of charge.
How do the neighbors feel about it?
Neighbors are cool with it. I have no problem with the neighbors. It's kind of a higher end neighborhood, but they've been really cool with it. The owner loves us. And they love what we do as far as the vision.
But how nice is that? You have taken people off the streets that were homeless, that had drug problems, that have made the commitment to be saved, and on multiple levels. They've been saved by the Lord. Now they're getting their lives together. Right. You had brought someone in who was now reinitiated with his family after doing prison time.
Can I share something about that?
Absolutely.
So Julio, that was on last time. We just got back from Guadalajara. He got to see his dad. For the past 7 years, he hasn't seen his dad.
Wow.
And we just went to Guadalajara, came back. But while we were there, he was able to be with his dad, his aunt, And his
Did
dad,
you go with him?
I was with him.
Oh, nice.
So me and my wife we brought him out there with us. Got to spend the whole week with his family, and so that was just another part and another step of really seeing his family's restored. So he was here on the show just a few months ago.
Yeah,
and
he's making huge strides.
Yeah, he's doing
so
great.
it's what I was going to say is that it's wonderful that you are able to put something like that in a neighborhood and the neighbors are accepting of it, because oftentimes they hear these things and they're like, oh no, we're not going to put up with that. We don't want that in our neighborhood. And what they don't realize is that you are more committed to making sure that these people don't fail, that
That's
they
right.
actually succeed, that I'd like to have that as one of my neighbors.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I've had some bad neighbors through the years, but how nice would it be to have a duplex of 8 people with people that are committed to getting sober? And you don't just do men; you do women as well.
Yes.
Yeah, but you segregate. You do men with men and women with women.
Yes.
And so it's a great thing that you're doing, and it's Victory Outreach Church. And how does anyone get involved if they want to do what you're doing? How do they get involved?
Yeah, you can go to the website, vowestvalley.com, and all my information's on there, Instagram, phone number, as far as getting involved with the local church. But if you want to be a part of the home, maybe you have a brother, sister, aunt, uncle that needs rehabilitation, you could call my number, 909-636-7517. Give me a call, and we could get them into our home. So
And we'll have that up on David will get that up on Facebook for anyone that missed
Perfect.
it. But so what other success stories have you had besides, what was his name? Julio?
Yeah. So recently, about 2 months ago, went and represented a young man from a family in our church. He'd been locked up for about 4 years. He had to do another 3-4 years, and the judge released him to our program, released him to our home. So
you now have the judges coming in and saying, hey, this is really working. How nice what a great thing for judges, that judges now have a place to put them.
That's right.
Because it used to be they sent them to jail and they got sober, and they had a huge success rate in county jail. Now they don't recommend, jail time for sobriety. It's unfortunate, but how wonderful that your program has touched law enforcement, it's touched the judicial system, and now we're actually able to help these people. And ultimately, they end up not being homeless. And that's the thing that people don't understand, is this is another way to help these people from ending up homeless.
that's right.
And you actually take people off the street from homelessness.
Straight
don't you?
off the street.
Mm-hmm. Now, do they have to be saved, to enter the program?
Nope. So there's 2 requirements. You can't be a sex offender, and you can't be on psych meds. Those are the 2 requirements. Most people pass those 2 requirements, and if they do, we take them right into our home.
Now, like I know the previous mayor, he had a program in Housing First, and so there was no requirement for sobriety. And that doesn't necessarily work out very well, or it didn't. And so you had, it ended up some of the homes where you could see why the neighbors were upset is because people were getting loaded and causing a lot of problems. So how was it in your facility?
So I have a lot of families. Me and my wife live there. I got my children. And then, of course, we keep a line drawn there, too, as far as, like, the men, the contact and things like that. But then I got women that live with me as well with their children. So, again, we keep a pretty fine line there. But there's still a family atmosphere in our home. So you could walk in at any time, right? Rudy's been there. You could walk in at any time and not know it's a recovery home.
Wow.
You could not. I mean, you would then eventually you start seeing the guys, and you start. Okay, yeah, this is the home.
All right.
But the atmosphere and
the tattoos and ball
tattoos
heads
give it away. Yeah,
But
right, Rudy.
But I think the thing that the home offers, when you're an addict, and I got to go back a ways when I was, is that you have an empty spirit, and you're trying to fill it with drugs, alcohol. It took me a while, but I got there. And what this home offers is to fill that emptiness.
That's right.
And I think once people start feeling hope again, their lives change. They know they get love there, they got fellowship there, and that makes the difference. Because like Dave said, the county could have all these homes, and if there's no standard going on there, they're going to be right back at it.
Well, I think that was the biggest thing that I complained about when I ran for office, was that you can't just take a homeless person and stick them in a house and expect they're going to be successful. No. These people are going in with no structure, and they're doing more destruction to these brand new properties then you might, I mean, they don't have any of the resources they need. Oh, we'll just throw a psychologist downstairs, and if they feel like seeing them, they can. Well, that's not, if they felt like seeing them before, they wouldn't have been homeless to begin with. I mean, you've got to have structure, and you've got to create hope where they don't have any. And it's not a manufactured hope. It's letting them see what hope looks like by living with it every day.
Well,
you know?
And not only that is because you're not coming from a perspective of what you learned in school, as you're coming from a life experience. You know, you can have that combination, but mainly it's because you've been there, done that.
That's right.
And so there's that identification that I think even the most resistant individual to any type of 12-step program or faith-based program automatically has. I mean, that's just normal to have that resistance. But all of a sudden, it's like, oh, me too. That's that understanding that, you know, when you talked about that whole, I call it a soul sickness. And that's what you see so many individuals that are walking on the streets like zombies right now with that soul sickness. Yep. So now, if people want to help out the organization, I guess, well, is it a 501c3?
It's a nonprofit, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I put the website on the Facebook Live, but what's the website again for our listeners?
VOWestvalley.com.
Okay, and what type of help can they contribute?
They can contribute financially. We have Zelle. They could send checks. We have all our church information on there. They can email us, whatever. They have different ways of being able to contact us. And if they want to give as far as resources, you know, Bibles, food, if they have food connections, things like that, we're always looking for that as well. Because our home is not only, it's a faith-based, but we don't charge. So everything we do, we're really believing God to provide. And so, I mean, I just get random calls, random connections from people. I got a connection with, Netflix shows that they do the catering, and so they'll have us come pick up the catering food. So we're literally coming home with steak and lobster,
Oh, nice.
Food already going. You have to cook it.
When's dinner?
Yeah, exactly. And so
we'll be over at 6.
Yeah.
So what do you do? So this is a 3-day weekend. I'm sure you have some veterans that are with you. And how do you celebrate Memorial? How do you teach them to celebrate Memorial Day for the first time sober? I mean, because that's a big, that 4th of July, Labor Day, those are big party weekends for people that have been indulging in the services of the devil.
Yeah, so what we're doing, what we do as a church every Memorial Day, which Rudy's going to be a big part of this year too, is we do a parade. So our Canoga Park, they put on a big, really San Fernando Valley parade where thousands of people come out. So actually on Monday morning, we're going to be marching, and the march goes right in front of our church, right in front of our church building. So it's a 2-mile march, a 2-mile parade, and so we're going to be setting up. We have a big float we're going to be putting together, of course, representing our church and things like that, and then being able to witness to our community and share the love of Christ, but also share and declare the freedom that we have in our nation. So really excited for that. We do that every year and then our home is involved in that as well.
So,
nice.
So that's Monday. What time does that start?
Monday at 10 o'clock.
Monday at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Now, and what are the coordinates of where your church is at? Not just the address, but what street?
Topanga Canyon and Sherman Way.
Oh,
that's
okay.
where the parade's going to be starting. We're going to be marching all the way down Sherman Way from Topanga all the way down to about Winnetka.
Is that the church that's across the street from the automotive store, the tire store over there?
No.
Yeah,
we just got in a few weeks ago.
Oh, and congratulations! So
congratulations.
good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so a lot of work. And
you know what we're going to have our friend Reese Lloyd call in at 9:05 to talk about Memorial Day, because what a lot of people and sometimes they get confused. I mean, their hearts are in the right place, but Memorial Day isn't Veterans Day. Memorial Day is for the people that served who were killed in action or that didn't come home. So there's a big difference, and so it's not a day of celebration, but it's a day of respect and reflection and appreciation and gratitude. And so I'd like to point that out sometimes because people don't know. They just think, it's another Veterans holiday. Not quite. I mean, it's close, but it's to honor those that sacrificed all. And when you look back, because I went in the Navy when I was 18. So when you look during the Vietnam War, I mean, most of those young people that died were less than 25 years old. Most of them were 19 and 20 years old. And so when you look at, we lose 50,000 in Vietnam, and you start looking at all of the different wars, it really adds up. And so it's
and the thing is
to
too, David, I think, and the reason I brought up veterans is because oftentimes veterans have gone down the road of alcohol and drug abuse because they've lost people that they served with, and so Memorial Day for them is a huge reminder, and it's a hard thing for them to deal with. That's why I was asking, how do you do Memorial Day?
Well, I think you're on the money. There is the same way NAAA does. Usually they'll call their sponsor. The fellows there got the pasture. They got each other. They got God. Other than that, it's on you.
Right.
It's going to be on you to use those tools to get you through it.
Right.
And it's just one more hurdle. And those hurdles get lighter and lighter as you keep going.
Right.
But that's what they have.
Well, that's why I was asking what you do for them.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misinterpreted your question.
Oh, no, that's okay. I kind of figured that's why I thought I would clarify it, is that a lot of times you have veterans that when it comes to any of these holidays, they struggle tremendously with it, and they're used to just going out and getting inebriated because they're dealing with the fact that they've lost people that they served with, or they've lost them to suicide or PTSD and other issues even after the military. So it seems like that would be a really important holiday to help them get through it. So it sounds like you guys have a great plan for them to be able to honor the holiday and yet do it for the first time sober and with a lot of love and God around them, which is great. Yeah.
And so the parade, is it? Are you? And you're going to be out there marching, or are you going to be on the float, Rudy?
No, I have my flag. I'm going to have a flag out there leading the charge.
And which flag is that going to be?
One nation under God.
Good. Okay. Well, I didn't know if you were serving for military. I didn't know.
I never. I wish I would.
You served, but not in the military.
I served, but a different way. I served the streets.
Well, we all have our own service.
And there was no benefits.
No benefits. That's right. And you don't want to go back.
Nope. Don't want to go back.
Been there, done that.
I learned.
Well, but and that's important because. What do they say? We sometimes we relate the past. We don't shut the door on it because of the benefit that it's going to have others.
Right.
And that's just the reality of There's a line in one of those books that says, "Crushed by a self-imposed crisis, we couldn't avoid or delay." And so a lot of times, especially around holidays like Christmas or parents' birthdays and stuff, people get overwhelmed with guilt and shame over their behavior. Yeah. And when not realizing that if they're suffering from an affliction, whether it's alcoholism or addiction, if you could have avoided it, you would have, but you couldn't. And so that's not an excuse for bad behavior, but it's an explanation. And I think as people realize that, and it takes a long time to realize that, but it takes other people who have gone through that, who have processed that and said, you know what, if I could have done better, I would, but I couldn't. And so, like I said, it's not an excuse, it's an explanation. And here we have two examples of people that have gone through that, have recovered, and are using that in order to give back. So that's the beauty of what you guys are doing.
Well, I mean, do you want to tell your story real quick about how you ended up where you are? And you didn't end up. I mean, it was a choice for you, but it was an interesting. It was. Tell your story.
Yeah. So 12 years ago was when I came into the ministry. But before that, I was an addict. I was addicted to crystal meth, heroin, weed. Man, I was a pothead, alcoholic. I did it all for a pretty good streak of about 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so I'm originally from Las Vegas. And so that's where I born and raised, grew up in kind of really that Sin City lifestyle. And it was 24/7. And so growing up into that, really coming to a place, I was actually going to share with Rudy on the way here, very angry, murderous spirit. I was carrying some pretty heavy things with me. Coming to a place in my life where I was losing my mind. I was losing my mind, using crystal meth, staying up for 2-3 weeks at a time. And finally came to a place where I said enough is enough, and I just happened to come across somebody who knew about Victory Outreach and about the home. I tried NA, tried AA. The programs are good, but it just didn't work for you. It didn't work for me. I needed, like you said, that soul. There was something in the heart that needed to be filled, and those things weren't filling it. And so someone told me about Victory Outreach. I knew how to get out of Las Vegas, so I left Las Vegas, came to Chino, and haven't looked back since. Went straight into our men's recovery home. Was there for 16 months. And
Wow.
haven't looked back. Never went back to Vegas and been able to travel the world through the ministry of Victory Outreach. I've been all around Africa.
Hold that thought, and here we are. That's great.
We have someone coming on the line. David's 8 feet from the mic. So we have Benny coming on.
Hey, Benny. Not to change the subject, but you're on the air live.
Benny? Hello.
Can you hear us, Benny? Well,
Yeah, there he is.
you got 1 minute, quick, Benny. Tell us why you're calling. And I know why.
I just wanted to congratulate Silmar High School for being victorious and getting the city championship. Coach Ray Rivera is a gentleman that we mentored as a kid. We taught him how to give back to our community, and to see him win at Dodger Stadium is a dream for all of us. It's a dream come true.
Oh, is that where they
thank
played
you,
the
Ray
game?
Rivera. Congratulations, Silmar.
All right, so Silmar,
congratulations, Silmar.
and now that's really heartfelt because you went to San Fernando, Benny.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went to San Fernando, and I also coached Arleta High School, the Mustangs. But Ray, being a young kid that we mentored, he's one of those who teaches his kids the same thing.
I'm
So
assuming
just
this is
positive
baseball?
things. Yes, baseball program. CIF champions.
Now, Betty, we're here in studio with Pastor Kris from Victory Outreach in was that West Hills,
West Valley.
West Valley, and also Rudy V.
Rudy V.
Rudy
Oh.
V.
How you doing, my brothers in the Lord?
I'm here. I'm doing good.
Doing great.
So, all right, Benny, and now tomorrow,
Congratulations.
Tomorrow, you're going to be speaking at 3:00 at Victory Park in Pasadena, and so we'll be there for that.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to it. Thank you guys for everything.
All right, you guys. Thank you, Benny.
Thanks for sharing the great news, Benny. Tell them all congratulations.
Congratulations, Silmar.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank
that's
you.
kind of
God
cool.
bless you. Bye-bye.
That's super cool. Especially if they got to play at Dodger Stadium. Well, that's our first half hour. You're with David and Jeffy on the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club on AM 870. The Answer, and we'll be right back.
Thank you, Kris. Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
See you soon.
All right.
Bye, guys. And we are back.
Yep.
And David, we started the show with the whole trans issue and all that stuff going on, and it's not just at Dodger Stadium; it's at LAUSD schools.
Well, and there's many aspects of, to the argument, but a lot of it, especially with our next guest that's coming on right now, is that we're talking about what is age appropriate, or what is venue appropriate. Is a 6-year-old? I mean, shouldn't children that young don't they have a right to evolve to
Well,
okay.
Well, I don't know. Let's. When you say right for kids, really, it's not the right for the kids. It's the parents' right to decide what's appropriate for their children.
But children also have a right to their innocence.
Of course they do.
Not being taken away by people with other agendas. But let's go ahead, because there is a rally coming up on June 2nd, and it just so happens to be at the school that I graduated from, probably before you
10
were
minutes
born.
ago.
So,
Hi, Christine. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, Christine, I was looking through Instagram, and I saw Satakoy Street School, and it's like, wait a minute, I went there. And then I started reading, and it's like, wait a minute. When you start looking at the ages of the children that are, because that's what K through, 5 or
Right.
1 through 5. When you start looking, we're talking about 6-year-olds, we're talking about 8-year-olds, we're, okay, a 5th grader, maybe 9-year-olds. And all of a sudden, there's this, the school is putting together this assembly, and it's, which really I think is important is that so many parents got involved in this. So, Christine, why don't you explain to our listeners, what's taking place, what can they do to help, and
How do they get involved?
Yep.
Sure. So that's exactly what's taking place. We're having a rally on June 2nd at 8 a.m. at Satakoy Elementary. Most parents at the school have signed petition to keep their kids out of school that day, or to cancel this assembly, which is supposed to take place, which will talk to kids about LGBT issues and things that most parents don't want their kids to be exposed to just yet. Like you said, there's still young and innocent, and we just want them to go to school and learn their reading, writing, arithmetics, and play on the playground, and not come home talk about sex-related issues just yet.
Well, and I was looking at some of the comments on the Instagram, and it seems to me that some of the vile negative comments that were put on there against your positions is really missing the point. It's what we're talking about is age appropriate, and to have a 7-year-old is not going to understand, or a 6-year-old or 7-year-old, and so they're going to have a school assembly, so they're going to explain what all of this is. I mean,
you're going to have two. Some kids have two mommies. Some kids have two daddies. I mean, I my personal opinion, I think that's up for parents to decide what they want their kids to know. Kids, I don't think really notice that at that age, do they?
No, they don't, and that's something that I've noticed, that my 7-year-old did not know anything of this, and the last 2 days he's been asking what's gay, what's going on.
Gay's happy. Gay means happy.
But he was actually testing me because he said there was some parents were talking and they're concerned what's going on, and I said, well, I'll find out and I'll let you know, and he said, no, I already know. So he's kind of like poaching to see what I know. So they're basically being fed information that they don't need at this stage in their life right now. And I've been thinking about this because I grew up here and I went to school here. I went to elementary school here, and back in those days in the 90s, we were not taught these things at school. But we also didn't grow up to hate anyone. And when I was old enough to get my first job at a hair salon in a school in West Hollywood, I was exposed to all types of people from all walks of life, and there were gays and transgendered people, and some of the most amazing human beings I've encountered were, gay, lesbian, and transgendered. I did not have any predisposition to love them or hate them. I treated them just like anyone else. So I'd like my kids to have the same opportunity to just be and decide for themselves who people are.
Well, and I think that's important because, what you just said is that the way that some of those comments were trying to depict you, I mean, there were references to Nazis, there was references to, your children should be taken away from you. And
right, we're bigots.
Yeah, you're bigots. And it's kind of like in the name of tolerance, people are being very intolerant. They're being very intolerant of your views, whether it's because of faith or whatever it is. Right. It seems like people want tolerance, and they're being intolerant about it. So, and I don't see why are they having an assembly to have a bunch of 6-year-old and 7-year, 8-year-olds there to explain all of this that's going on.
Right, and it's our understanding that this is up to each school to decide whether to have an assembly or not, and many of the schools in the area are not having assemblies, although June is Pride Month, and I assume that other schools are celebrating that in some way or another. But it only takes one person in the school, which is apparently the case here. A staff person at the school has requested this, and, it's going to happen just because one person thinks that it's appropriate for an entire student body to have this assembly, and we have no say.
Well, I believe there's about 500 parents of the children that go there, and I think it was 400 that signed the petition not to do it.
Right.
And how many students are in the school?
About 500 or so.
So you have 500 or so students in the school, and you have 400 out of 500 parents that signed for it not to happen, and we have one person that wants it, so therefore it's going to happen?
Right.
So that sounds like the percentage of the woke.
Yeah, well, and it's like pushing an agenda where the agenda is more important than the emotional and mental well-being of the children. It's like, you're going to be I'm going to force you to be tolerant.
Right, and that creates resentment where there was none before.
Yeah.
So when is your rally?
The rally is on June 2nd, coming Friday, when the assembly is slated to be, which is also not on the school's calendar, interestingly enough.
Wow, they didn't put it on the school calendar, yet they're going to have it?
Right.
That's interesting. Wow. And what's the address of the school, or where approximately is it if anyone wants to show up and support you?
So, Sadako, the major cross streets are Coldwater Canyon and, what would that be?
Is that Elkwood?
Help here. Strathern.
Strathern, okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And we'll be there. We'll be keeping the kids home that day. And we hope that the LAUSD and any other schools paying attention will take note that parents want to have a say what their kids are exposed to. And it has nothing to do with intolerance or hate. We just want our kids to not be exposed to anything that we are not ready to talk to them about yet.
And then what kind of signs are you accepting or not accepting, or no signs at all? What is it that, so if
there
people...
will be signs, and there will be signs just to say, leave the kids alone, and parents have rights and things of that nature. I know that there will probably be people who oppose our views at the rally as well, and we're hoping to keep it very civil, and I hope that people realize that we're not being hateful, we're not, we don't dislike anyone, and like I said before, many of the parents that I talk to have people in their lives who are near and dear to them, who are in the LGBTQ community, but we don't, and everyone can live their life as they please, but we don't want this indoctrination of our kids at this age.
No, and that's important, and and that's why.
Well, that's why I brought up the signs, because we want to support. We want to support you in having people come if they want to support you on Friday. We just want to make sure that people don't show up with signs that are offensive. Your goal is to have parents have a say in what their children are being exposed to, and that's the type of signs that should be showing up.
Now, Christine, and then I saw we've just been joined by Jennifer Kennedy, and I know I saw you, Jennifer, you had posted something about this as well. This is Christine from the Satakoy Street Elementary School.
Hi, Christine. Yes, I had posted that because I'd love to see local parents come out and support. Even if it's not your school, this affects all of us. Yeah. So I'm glad that's being organized, and I hope we can have a lot of people out there.
Yep. Oh, well, we'll be there, and our Gen Z team will be there interviewing parents as well. And so, Christine, it's very unpopular.
What time is it at?
8 a.m.
8 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah, at 8 a.m. Friday, June 2nd, Satakoy Street Elementary, and it's important to include elementary school.
Right.
Yes, this is an elementary school. It's not a junior high or a middle school. It's not a high school. It's not a 2-year college. It's an elementary school where kids are what?
Little.
But no, they're little. But what's their age? From
five,
it's going to be
six.
K through 5, right, Christine?
To 11 at most.
Yeah, 5 to 11.
Yeah.
So parents have a right to decide what their children should be exposed to.
And Christine, what is the Instagram account for your group?
The Instagram account is Satakoy Parents. Let me look that up to be exact.
Yep,
Let's see who can find it fastest.
Yep, Satakoy Parents on Instagram. And that's Saticoy. Oh,
you know what I see?
Satakoy Elementary.
Exactly. All no spaces. Satakoy Elementary Parents.
Yep, that's it.
On Instagram. Right, Christine?
Thank you.
All right, Christine, we will see you Friday morning at 8 o'clock. And,
Thank you. See you then. Bright and early.
You've got it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So if you go to Satakoy Elementary Parents on Instagram, they have it pinned for the protest details. So what I'm asking is that if you're going to go, please show up, but let's be respectful to our LGBT communities. We're not there to be against them. We're there for parents' rights, for the education of their children.
And for the kids. Speaking of rights.
Speaking
and
of parents'
kids,
rights, it
parents'
could
rights.
Hi, Jennifer.
could not be a better segue to what I want to talk about tonight.
It's
Hello,
Capital Watch,
everybody.
Jennifer Kennedy. She's
Thank
back.
you. Thank you very much. And I want to give a little update on 3 of the bills that are moving through the legislature right now that totally affect parents' rights. And one of them you've probably heard about, and 2 of them you might not have heard about. And they're all the last one I'm going to try to do a deep dive and help people understand why this one I think is the most critical. Okay, we're going to start with AB 659. That started out as the mandate for the HPV shot. It started out as a mandate for 8th graders, lots of grassroots pushback, and they took out the mandate and then they pushed it off on the college kids. And we said, no, not that. They took out that mandate. What's happening with 659 right now is they still have this ridiculous language in the bill requiring schools at the high school level and the college level to send out these letters informing incoming students that it is the, quote, public policy of the state of California that you're expected to receive the HPV shot. You're expected to, and it's the public policy of the state. Number one, this is extremely weird. We don't usually make laws that talk about what the public policy is when there is nothing to enforce. It is bizarre, a lip service to someone who really, really wants to mandate that shot but can't because it's no longer a mandate. Mm-hmm. So the objection here is that we fully believe that parents will be misled by the word expected.
They will be.
Parents and teens and anybody going into college, and also our ESL, our non-English-speaking parents, they're going to see that word expected, and they're going to think it's required. Or people are going to get away with using language loosely. And anyway, so we've been pressuring them to take this language out.
For lack of clarity.
Of course. And for the potential to mislead. And we all know the HPV shot has, it's tied up in litigation. There's all kinds of things that Merck hasn't released about it, and it's already implicated in damage. So we do not want to mislead anyone into thinking they have to take that shot. Author so far has refused to take out that language, and AB 659 is now, it still needs to pass off the assembly floor. It's facing a really tight deadline. It has a June 2nd deadline to pass off the assembly floor, and it still needs to make its way through committees. If it doesn't pass by that date, it's going to become a 2-year bill. I'm going to say that's my prediction right now because they will not agree that quickly, I think, to change the language. The author, Cecilia Aguiar-Curry, she's very invested in this bill. It came from a place of her knowing people in her sphere that apparently had died of cervical cancer. The theory is that the HPV shot prevents cervical cancer. That's a matter of scientific question right now. Anyway, I think she's going to try to hang on to it and make it a 2-year bill. But we still need that pressure on the assembly people. Actually, it's any assembly person to take that language out.
So call and email any assembly person.
Yeah, I would call their offices. The calling is really helpful. But okay, so that's that one. That's bad language. It would be very misleading. But the next 2 are the worst because they are looking to take kids away from parents. We've talked about these both before. I'm only going to quickly talk about AB 957. That's the one that seeks to put into the family code this one clause. It's not even a full sentence. This one clause that says affirmation of child sex change, basically affirmation of child gender transition, is in the best interest of the child. And they're going to put this in the family code, and that's going to tie the hands of judges. It's going to force judges to affirm or to favor parents who affirm child gender transition, child sex changes. This is any age of child. This is medical or social transition. This is saying that, again, the public policy of the state of California is that child gender transition is in the best interest of the child. And as I've posted before, in this instance, is means always, because they're saying affirmatively that you must favor the affirming parent, for example, in custody and visitation decisions, comma, because affirming a child's gender identity is in the best interest of the child.
Well, in some cases, that could be teacher, right? Because you have some teachers that
No,
are
no,
claiming. I'm saying because I'm going further, but teachers saying like,
technically, what this is doing, it seeks to put it into California law by starting in the family code. We will see this in custody decisions. We will see it in family court only. It's also adding it to the Code of Civil Procedure because it talks about you want to affirm the parent who is allowing the child to change his or her name, or her gender.
What if neither parent affirms?
Well, that's a different situation. I'm just saying what's happening here is they're trying to amend to make it part of state law that affirmation of sex change for children is always in the best interest. So we need to stop that. That one is sitting, it's passed off the assembly floor, everybody. It's half the way to being law. It's sitting in the Senate in the Judiciary Committee. And we cannot rely on the attorneys in the Judiciary Committee for realizing this is a total overreach in our courts and in on our judges. So we need to call the members of the Judiciary Committee. They are Umberg, Wilk, Allen, Ashby, Caballero, Maria Elena Durasso, John Laird, Dave Min, Roger Niello, Henry Stern, our local Henry Stern, and of course, Scott Wiener. We need to call those offices and say that we need to not pass that through committee. That's AB 957. Okay. This is the worst one coming up. It's AB 665. It is also the most confusing bill out there right now, and that's because the legislators and the author's office, they talk about it as if it is access to mental health services for children for poor kids, just like the mental health services that are offered to the rich kids. That's how they are playing it. That is a smokescreen. There are several lies that underlie their arguments, and I want us to talk about this in terms of not children, but the parental lens. If we flip it and we look at what it's doing to parental rights, it's much clearer why we have to defeat this amendment to the Family Code. So, quickly, this is all about children's minors' consent to mental health care, which is going to include mental health counseling and also residential shelter services. We've talked about it before. Those residential shelters are going to be your group homes, okay? We have two statutes, two laws on the books that allow minors to consent to mental health treatment and or residential shelter services. And this is where the authors...
That's without parental consent.
Here's the thing. Without parental consent. But we have these two laws, right, that discuss this without parental consent. And there are reasons why. So we look at this from the lens of parental authority. It is our right as parents to direct the care and upbringing of our children. It's our right as parents to have our children in our home and to know where our children are and what adults are providing services to our child, including counseling. You look back at Family Code 6924. This is an older law from 1979. It allows minor consent to counseling, mental health treatment, and residential shelter services going to a group home with no parental consent, but only with guardrails in place. We've talked about them. The guardrails are that the minor is mature enough to consent to these in
12 and over?
Well, they're 12. Correct. Thank you. They're 12 and older, but the professional person rendering treatment thinks they're mature enough. But here's the important guardrails, that there's danger to the child from by themselves, from suicide, etc., or there's danger at home, incest and abuse. Okay, when those guardrails are in place, that 12-year-old can consent to either mental health counseling and or go to the group home, residential shelter services. That is Family Code 6924. And by the way, Medi-Cal pays for this. That's going to come in later in a minute. Okay, we have a later statute, a later law from 2010, Health and Safety Code 124260. Again, 12-year-old minor can consent to mental health treatment counseling only. There is no mention of residential shelter services, no mention of going to a group home, but the minor can consent to counseling and mental health treatment without parental consent if the minor is mature enough. See the big difference between these two laws. One has the guardrails because the child is going to go to a group home. The only reason they're going to go there is because there's danger to self or danger at home. In this other later statute, the minor, the 12-year-old, can consent to mental health counseling. This means that right now, a 12-year-old at school can go to the counselor's office at school every single day, all year long, without the parent's knowledge or consent, and have conversations with a random adult counselor. Okay? That's
Are they allowed to be medicating them?
Here's the thing. No, it has nothing to do with medication, and they are not. I personally don't like that statute anyway. I don't like the fact that my 12-year-old could be sitting talking to a counselor all day long every day and receiving mental health counseling without my ever knowing, but that's the state of the law. Okay, now that we have this background, what they're doing now with AB 665 is they are claiming that we're going to comport these two statutes. We're going to make them the same because Medi-Cal pays for the Family Code one with the guardrails, but Medi-Cal doesn't pay for the statute without the guardrails, right? They claim this is payment equity, Medi-Cal equity, but all it's doing is, in their version, they're going back to the Family Code and they are taking out the guardrails. That's all they're doing. And they claim that this is allowing poor kids to get treatment without waiting for them to be subject to danger. No, they could already have the treatment without any danger because they got health and safety code. These authors, there are 3 lies they are telling with regard to this amendment they're pushing because they're pretending that poor kids don't already have this right to go to the counselor's office, which they do. They are lying I'm telling you, in the text of this bill, it says in California existing law, both Family Code and Health and Safety allow a minor to consent to mental health and residential shelter services. That's not true. And they're saying that is the text of the bill. I believe they're trying to sneak this in to law to amend that Family Code to fix a mistake that they didn't get in the law a couple of years ago. We have to oppose this. You need to know AB 665. It's in judiciary. Please call those judiciary members. They will try to confuse you. It's not about Medi-Cal. It's not about money. It's about parental rights to keep their children at home and not allow kids to go to a group home just cuz.
And that is our first hour. It went by super, super quick. That was Jen Kennedy, our legal eagle. And you're with David and Jeffy on the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club radio show. We'll be right back for our 9 o'clock hour. So stay tuned and get a cup of coffee.
Yep. We're back, Jeffy.
We're back.
And boy, the hour went by quick.
I know. It goes by quick every week.
Well, but, this is a special weekend.
Yes, it is. It is a time for us to remember those that have served and given the ultimate sacrifice and have left behind Gold Star families.
Yep. So we're going to bring on our friend, Mr. Reese Lloyd. Let's go ahead and bring Reese right on because time goes by quick, and this is a very important subject. Welcome, Reese.
Well, thank you for having me.
And you're on with Jeffy and myself and Don Monroe as well.
Well,
so I was reading your article that you just wrote on May 26th regarding how we should feel about Memorial Day and how this is a very different Memorial Day, and it's a very heartfelt article that you wrote because you actually distinguish between we're no longer one nation under God because of the divide with those that no longer believe in God and where we are today. So go ahead and follow up with that because it was a very great article and it's a long one, so we really can't paraphrase it or go on. So it's best heard from the gentleman that wrote it.
Well, thank you so much. I do hope that people are listening will give it a read. Because it is so different this year. Among other things that makes it so different, and you referenced, is that we are in an accelerating transformation from being one nation under God into a divided nation without God. And I think it's resulted in some really seething and increasingly violent animus and mutual distrust. I was very active in the civil rights movement when its aim was a colorblind society. I was in the Army right out of high school. I know that David came right out of high school into the Army. Colonel Monaco, who's going to be with us, he had 34 years as a combat officer, as a colonel. And we look at these things now and say this is a different atmosphere. And one of the key questions that has to be asked in the present circumstances is, will we Americans still die for freedom? We were prepared when we went into the service that very well could not come back. We have experienced today an entirely different culture, and it raises that question, and how can it be answered? And we look at some of the changes in the transformation of the country from then to now. One of them, just like our national anthem was E pluribus unum, out of many one. Now, today, nobody even references that. And what we have, almost any issue that arises, governmental or social, there are cries of racism. People are attacked as racist. I admit on the air right now, I'm a racist. I'm for the human race. I always have been. I'm going to continue to be there. But we have a atmosphere now of even taking such a situation as how we go about urging change. And I was very interested in programs that you had in the first hour and those efforts that are being made to, especially around the parents' rights and good faith efforts made to help people who are in trouble with drugs and other things. We address our social problems through riots and looting. And the threat of the same. And what these are, in my mind, as a civil rights and attorney for 40 years, is that this is a form of social extortion in the name of social justice. I was with Cesar Chavez for many, many years, and Cesar's position was first that it had to have strong efforts, but nonviolent efforts. And somehow now the threat is, if we don't agree with you, we'll shoot you, or we will riot, we will burn, and we'll even say looting is a form of legitimate protest.
Oh, yeah. And then if you question it, then you're accused of putting...
You're racist.
Property before people. You care more about property than people, and besides, they're insured anyways.
Well, I think part of it, David, is this whole notion. We were involved in a movement for equality. That's been abandoned. It's now equity. What's the difference? Well, when you have equality, you have an equal opportunity under the law. Everyone is treated the same no matter their race. In equity, you have equal results.
Got it. That's the difference.
Equal opportunity. And that means that you are saying, well, you may not have really done this. You may have not studied. You may have a failing grade, but we're going to make sure that you're promoted because that's where otherwise it would be.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Right. I think that and when we're dealing with the racial situation we have today, to me, it's the undeniable reality. The rule ought to be all racism is evil, no matter the color of the perpetrator, no matter the color of the victim. Black racism is no more acceptable than white racism or any other kind of racism. And if we are going to really continue as the founding fathers wanted this country to be, we are going to be going forward in a situation where we have some substantial enemies. The Communist Party of China wants nothing more than to defeat the United States and to take over as the premier country in the planet.
Well, Reese, during the 50s when you had the un-American activities, hearings, and things like that, where, people were accused of being communists and they're basically saying no. And now today you look at some of the demonstrations out there, and a lot of the signs, which are commercially made, have the Communist Party right on the sign. So they're
right.
they're no longer in the shadows; they are out there. So if we see so much unrest in the name of communism, would it be out of line to think that maybe communist China that wants to see us go by the wayside might be funding a lot of this unrest that's taking place in our country?
Well, I'm going to jump in real quick because I think a lot of this younger generation has no idea what those communist signs even mean.
Well, I do, in terms of the point about the demonstrations, I was amused to see that Black Lives Matter is protesting and carrying all these placards, and then I see down in the corner it says RCP. That's the Revolutionary Communist Party.
All right,
it didn't seem to make any difference to the media.
Nope.
Don't you know what that RCP stands for?
They just ignored it. Well, we are now joined by Colonel Tony Monaco. Welcome, Tony. Welcome back, Tony.
Well, greetings. It's always a glorious opportunity to share pearls of wisdom.
Well, and here we are, and what we were talking about earlier in the show was that, many people when they, and they're coming from good intentions when they think of Memorial Day, they're thinking it's much like Veterans Day. And so they don't realize that this is about a day where we honor those that made the ultimate sacrifice. And
amen.
Yeah.
One of the things that Patriot Outreach has been doing for over the last several years is we're one of the only groups allowed to join the Gold Star Museum on Memorial Day's activities. And it's at Fort Dodge in Iowa. And it's the only Gold Star Museum in the country, by the way. And, it does take courage to leave home and fight for your family. And many have paid the ultimate sacrifice. And the symbol of the Gold Star is someone who has lost his life and gave the sacrifice. And one of the things that comes to mind that we need men of courage, women of courage, to fight for our country. And, I lived in the San Fernando Valley when I was going through high school before I joined the military. And that was in the 1960s, a half a century ago. Boy, I feel.
Hey, I graduated in 66. Polly Parrott.
Oh, my God, you guys are too funny.
One of the things I learned when I was in the 60s, I actually took martial arts, and that was unheard of in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually knew and worked out with Bill Realizaki, Benny the Jet, Chuck Norris, and even Bruce Lee. And believe it or not, I thought this was a Bruce Lee quote. The quote is, "All battles are first won or lost in the mind." And what I discovered is that quote was made by St. Joan of Arc 600 years ago.
Leave it to a woman.
Well, the problem is they don't.
So what high school?
Now we have men that want to be women.
What high school did you go to?
Oh, I went to North Hollywood High in Notre Dame in Sherman Oaks.
I know exactly where it is. Well, my son went to North Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
My school wasn't built yet.
Yeah.
I went to school in the San Fernando Valley. My high school wasn't built yet.
I think it's significant that Colonel Tony, when he was 16-year-old, Tony, he actually got involved in the Reagan campaign and ended up being the youth coordinator leader for the whole Reagan campaign. 16 years old.
Wow.
Well, that was that's what I'm like. I forgot all about that. I was watching George Putman, and he used to have a show called One Reporter's Opinion. At least he nominated. And on that show was Mrs. Booker, the wife of the commander of the USS Pueblo.
Oh.
And I'm sitting there, a 16-year-old kid, watching Glued to the Tube, and she makes the comment, all we need is public support. We need the people to speak out. And I sat there and I go, well, heck, that's easy. And so we did. I formed the Return the Pueblo Committee. And then there was a pilot named Lieutenant Joseph Dunn that was shot down during the Pueblo incident. We did return the Pueblo. did return Lieutenant Joseph Dunn. And as a result, in 4 weeks, we collected over 40,000 signatures, and we was invited to the White House, the Speaker of the House, all kinds of stuff.
Wow, that's amazing when you consider you didn't have all the social media that you have today.
Oh, yeah, it was just, I didn't think it was a hard thing, but I was just a kid saying, hey, I can make a difference. And what transformed was that later became Viva, Voices and Vital to America, with Steve Frank at UCLA, and I worked on the youth committee on that program, which later became known as the POW bracelet that came out of that. And then as a young man, I was...
Is that when the flag was developed, the POW flag?
Not the flag, the bracelet.
No, when was the flag developed?
That I do not know. That I do not know.
The flag was developed by the Gold Star Mothers.
How interesting. I never knew that. So the Gold Star Mothers created the POW flag. And, the Encino post office flies the POW flag with the American flag. It's the only post office I've ever seen fly the POW flag.
But see, I was approached, and as a young kid, before I joined the Army, I was the youth coordinator to a gubernatorial candidate named Reagan. And I went off to the military, and I missed the inaugural address. But see, the key point I want to point out to everybody, it seems hopeless as the story between David and Goliath. Because see, the truth is, what the evil does not want people to realize is there's a little bit of David in all of us. And so we can make a material difference.
Yep.
Well, that's why we have our 180 kids.
Yeah.
That are involved. We've got a part of our club is our youth group from, what are they, 16 to 24?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We started that youth group with the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club. They wanted to get involved, and so we answered the call, and they're doing all kinds of great things. And I think it's powerful to use, Memorial Day for kids to understand the loss that took place for them to have the freedom to speak.
Yep. Now, Tony, don't tell me you went down to the Valley Plaza to enlist.
Actually, a long story short is I read the book Green Beret. I got pumped up, and I threw the book aside. And 2 months later, my mother pestered it out of me to go help the plumber. And I did eventually. To find out the plumber was an ex-Green Beret just back from Nam, and I got all excited with the stories of war. And here's the naivety youth. I called up the recruiter, and it was the San Bernardino office, by the way, unfortunately, because it was I was out in that area. San Bernardino recruiter, and the naivety of youth. You got to be a paratrooper, and you got to have 2 specialties. Sign me up. So I ended up being a combat engineer, commo, and a paratrooper. And guess what? The naivety of youth, you really do have to jump out of the jet.
Yep. Colonel, thank you so much. And Reese, before I let you go, because we're out of time, I just saw somebody do a post that said Cesar Chavez was a communist. So I on my social media, I let our listeners know that I was going to ask you, is that true? And if not, why not?
It's absolutely false. And it was started by the John Birch Society all those years ago, more than 70 years ago, and somehow people don't let go of it. Cesar Chavez was a man who was living his faith. He was living his faith, and that gets turned around into, well, he must be a communist. It's awful. The guy went to Mass every day. When I was working with him as one of the attorneys, and he was absolutely a solid Christian, Catholic Christian, living his faith, and he ought to be honored for it.
All right.
I do want to say that
actually, he was anti-immigration to begin with.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that's a story for another show. Yeah. we're running out of time. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for calling in.
What, Reese?
And
I hope that your listeners will go and read this piece from newswithviews.com, because we are going to have to make the decision of whether or not we're going to stand up and defend the country, because we aren't going to have a choice except whether we're going to stand and fight or not.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you, Reese.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, appreciate it. God
Thank you
bless.
for your service. Such a powerful two men that we have on for all our holidays, whether it's Labor Day, July 4th, and Memorial Day. And their stories are amazing. And, we're not going to have those stories for a long, long time, as,
We'll make new stories. And and the thing is it's going to repeat, history will repeat itself. I think one of the strongest comments made right now was, kind of like, the war's lost, or the battle of the mind, basically. If you've convinced people in their mind that they've already lost, then it's a done deal. There's no fight to be made.
Yeah.
And so I think that currently the fight is of the mind, and it's of the minds of our children. And I think a lot of parents are not seeing that. I don't know why it is that they don't.
Well, real quick, Jen had texted me after she left because she forgot to mention. She said the bottom line with AB 665 is that it'll allow adults to check kids into a group home with no parental notice. This is the bottom line, most important thing about AB 665. And it talks about just that if parents have thought they've lost in their minds, they're not going to take a stand for their children. And our children are our next generation to make sure that we have a country to fight for.
Right. And then, when they talked, and then in closing, they were talking about, this fight. And then my question would have been to, who are we fighting against, right? Who is the enemy? I think that with the things that we've been seeing as of late, we had the Budweiser thing that you guys talked about earlier in the first hour, and the whole woke kind of agenda. Followed by, everybody flocked to other beers, including Miller. Miller for some
crazy reason,
psychotic reason, right? But here you go. You can't think that it's psychotic. You have to think, well, wait a minute. This is strategical. This is a strategy now, right? This is not a coincidence. Why? Why is it that one company who's losing billions, right, and then people flock over to another brand and they decide to do the same thing as if to expect anything different
results?
No.
But
no. So you have to ask yourself, this is happening again, and obviously capitalism isn't working here. They're trying to prove to us that, so what? You guys are still going to have to buy something from somewhere.
Right.
And so now you have the whole Target incident and the Dodger incident, and so this is being forced upon the mind. This is a battle of the mind, and it's being fought by these conglomerate corporations who are handled by World Economic Forum interest.
Yeah,
and they want to tell us that their interest is everyone's interest, and they're finding out that America is resisting and saying no.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world who's been thinking, God, these Americans are crazy. Now they're saying, well, wait a minute. They actually don't like this stuff. What's really going on? So I think the obvious is becoming very clear that there is an enemy, and that enemy is starting to show its face. And I think that when you have the enemy who controls all the products and supply chains, food, beer, they're treating us as children, and they're going to take away all of these things, necessities in life, and make it unbearable and make us suffer.
You must comply.
You must comply, exactly. So I think that for us sitting at home, we have to think together that the thing that they can't do is really control every single individual, which they're going to try to do, in my opinion, in the whole social media,
through TikTok,
AI, TikTok, all that. They're going to try to control human behavior and your money. They shut you out of your money. Well, you're going to be a very good boy or girl or whatever
Or
the hell
whatever
they want to call you, because
Yeah.
no, it's going to get to a point where this is an illusion of choice of what you want to be. Come on, let's wake up, everybody. It's an illusion.
Well,
it's an illusion.
No, and they're very. In order to get your compliance, they will take away your livelihood. We have Tracy calling in just for a quick minute, and this is a prime example of what you're talking about. Non-compliance
equals what? Let's hear it from Tracy.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, it's Tracy. I'm so happy to be with you guys, and what you're talking about is so important because most people don't realize that LAUSD teachers were forced to take a shot or lose their jobs, and those who were the very few who were given an accommodation is the word they're using. There's so few, but there's so many teachers who were coerced, and those who stood and really standing also on behalf of all kiddos who deserve to have medical freedom. There's so many, right? And so, with that said, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of teachers and staff members from LAUSD blocked off campus since October of 2021. Most people don't realize that's still going on to this day. In fact, 11 teachers, about 11 teachers in the last week or two have been told no position for you. You cannot work. And the majority of these teachers, 300 last year, the majority of these teachers are teachers who have 20 years of experience, who love these students, who believe in teaching the truth. Mm-hmm. Tonight, there was an amazing event, and Leslie Manukian and Health Freedom Defense Fund, on behalf of California Educators for Medical Freedom, came and spoke, and we had amazing other speakers. But we're going to have a special event tomorrow. It's a thank you for anyone who's willing to draw the line, stand for freedom, whatever choice you've made, if you had a choice. We respect you, but we would love your support. And we want to just invite everybody to tacos and dessert over in Santa Monica tomorrow, and an opportunity to meet Leslie Manukian with Health Freedom Defense Fund. She's a warrior, and we'd love to have more warriors come and join us. If anyone would like to RSVP and get more information, you can dial 818-213-1194.
1184, right?
Educatorsformedicalfreedom.com. Educators for FOR medicalfreedom.com.
And that's going to be tomorrow at 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Hulu Conference Room, 2500 Broadway in Santa Monica, and limited seating, street parking. Once again, 818-213-1184. And
that's right.
That's right. And so they can come and they can see you, meet you, and meet your speakers from the Health and Freedom Defense Fund. Tracy, thank you for all that you do and you've done for the kids over all these decades that you've been teaching, and we're really appreciative of everything. So tomorrow, 5 o'clock, Hulu Conference Room, 2500 San Bernardino, 2500 Broadway in Santa Monica.
So that's David and Jeff with the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club on AM 870. The Answer. We'll be right back
with Don Carlos
to finish our Don Carlos segment.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, guys, so much.
And we're back with Mr. Don Carlos himself.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Yeah, it's been a busy night. It went by fast. Well, it's not done yet, but
I was going to say, you still have half an hour.
It goes really fast this last half hour. It's like, before you know it, we're, wrapping it up. But, my daughter, I had asked her, I said, what topic do you want to talk about? And you guys kind of jumped into it in the first hour. So I don't want to sound like it's a broken record, but...
But you have in-depth views on it, though. We just kind of touched on the surface of it.
Well, it gets deep when you get gentlemen like we just had, our guests who are veterans who have seen a thing or two, right, or three, and they throw quotes. I think about like a lot of like in my family, a lot of my, I'm blessed to have had grandparents around and a lot of elderly around that actually paid attention to the kids. It wasn't just like they weren't just seen, or sorry, was it seen and not heard type of thing?
Yeah.
They actually listened, right? And so it's interesting that they used to tell me, like, if you have to say something in so many words, you lose the message. So for them, it was always old kind of Southern phrases. It was like, bend that sap while it's young. Mm-hmm. It's like, what the heck did that mean? I used to think, this is crazy. What are you talking about? But I had to use that with my son. Recently driving from school, he felt like he was being punished because he didn't have a cell phone. He's a freshman. So before you listeners judge me, I sat there and I told him, if Bill Gates and Steve Jobs said they weren't giving their kids phones until they were 18, 19, I think I'm gonna take their own advice, right? And,
right.
And there must be a reason. The people who are developing all this technology, they have the white papers, the real data, and the real science behind how it affects the brain and the mind of these children. So, but anyway, as we're driving from the school, and I'm pointing out the different trees, and I've mentioned this before, but as we're passing a bunch of these trees, I say, "What do you notice about those trees on the side of the road?" And he says, "I don't know, they're trees." Typical teenage response. And I said, "No, I mean, look at them again. What do you see there?" I said, "You see a stick next to all those trees. They're newly planted, right?" "Yep." I said, "What about those other trees? Those are older trees, Dad." I said, "Okay, well, what do you notice about that? Do those have sticks?" He says, "No." I said, "Exactly." I said, "While you're little, you get a stick, and you grow straight, right? And then you don't need the stick anymore. You don't need so Dad's the stick." So, and I think that's kind of, and he understood it right away and realized that he was not being punished. That it was actually for his own growth. The following day, I took a picture I was parked outside waiting to pick him up, and literally out of 50 kids, he was the only kid that wasn't looking down on the phone, completely oblivious about what was happening. I mean, a meteor can come down and just strike these kids.
And they have no idea.
No idea it's coming. But anyway, I think being present is what we're lacking today. Really being present, and parents are not being present. They sit there at the dinner table and they have their phone. They're going through everything, and now you can have a whole family sitting at a dinner table with phones. Maybe not even, not really having
any restaurant.
You're like
at any restaurant,
texting
exactly.
each other. "Pass me the bread, please."
Right.
So I have a question for you on that thought, Don. So, do you think that the woke movement, with the whole thing with Bud Light and Target and the Dodgers thing that's going on, do you think that we've been so indulged in our phones and the social media that this has come up and turned around and bit us in the hind end because we're not paying attention?
I think it's exactly that. I think we're not paying attention. I think that we're not being present about the implications of technology being glued to our hip all the time. And I think that, we're not seeing the real suffering that's happening to our children. I mean, look at. I mean, we talk about the data of foster kids that are out there. These are kids that are just falling through the cracks, and there's more of them falling through the cracks.
5 to 10 of them die a day.
There you go. And then on top of it, now we want to throw more children through government programs because of some sort of gender confusion or affirmation by parents. Come on, and all we're going to do is add more numbers to
the foster care system that we can't take care of or maintain.
That is already broken, right? So. And that's essentially more suffering. So, I mean, it just is what it is. And a lot of these kids are, some of them are angry, some of them are bitter, some of them find Jesus, some of them find ways to cope and ways to meditate.
Drugs and alcohol.
Grow. And some of them find other ways to cope with it. And, I mean, there are good people and bad people everywhere, and I think, we have to be present to also be aware of what's really happening and the effects it has on people. Like, I asked my kids, I said, when they were going to the school I will not name on the show before.
When they were actually in school.
When they were actually in a institution. I call it an institution. I mean, really, at some point, you start to feel like, this is a system of compliance, and it is a system very similar to a jail where you have the bells ring and you go in and out. I mean, look, when I didn't feel that way when I was going through that system, but that's exactly how I'm going to call it, because at least when I went there, I was being taught how to think, not what to think. And so today, people are being told what to think, and there's the real problem. It is an institution. They're being institutionalized, and they are being
institutionalized out of critical thinking.
Out of critical thinking and into indoctrination of compliance type thought. And it's disgusting, it's sad, and I really think of it as predatory in nature. I think it's no different than an abusive adult who is grooming a young person who has a clear blank slate in their mind to believe that this is normal, it always has been normal, and this is the way it's always going to be. And so, it's I don't know, it's very disheartening that that's the product that we are potentially going to have more of. But there are also a lot of good people out there that are doing good work too. So there's this, as they stated, there is this kind of war going on. But we are having to deal with the symptoms, right, of this outside influence, right, who wish to push this compliance type of mindset. When the World Economic Forum talks about how you'll own nothing and be happy, right? That's interesting because someone's going to own it.
Yeah, right. They are.
Somebody's going to own it, and someone's going to tell you whether you can have it or not, right? So let's just get real with this, okay? You guys, they have these great. They sound sweet and nice, and then they talk about equity and gender fluidity and all these other. It's as if they've created just more things to create more division. That's it. It's create more division, have them bicker and fight about these other things. In the meantime, we are going to monopolize their food. We're going to monopolize their pharmaceutical needs. We're going to create more disease, right?
They're going to monopolize the ground for which we can grow food.
They have. I mean, that's what the whole thing with came out with Roundup, right? Glyphosate. And that's what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was talking about. He's talking about all the right points,
right?
And they're terrified of this man because he knows what he's talking about,
right?
And the fact that a journalist could sit there and just brush him off, and make it seem as if he's a quack,
some kind of crazy quack.
It's
a wacko anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
Well, let's take it. But let's take this back. You sent me a video earlier this week about in June 2nd, isn't it? That they're taking away farmers' right. The FDA has taken away farmers' ability to buy antibiotics for their livestock.
Well,
I mean, that's another way. That's something else that they're doing.
They're requiring that they go through a veterinarian.
Correct. Where it's always
where before they can just go in and get these basic essential things.
I got it for my horses
to care for their animals.
Yeah.
Right. And it possibly is because they were people who were able to heal themselves during, dare we say, pandemic, and they realized that some of these pharmaceutical drugs that the animals take are chemically no different than, So anyway, the point is that people were taking these things too, and they want to discourage that and have a veterinarian certify. Now, the thing is in that video, if you watched it to the very end, the gentleman talks about, look, before we had all these drugs, we had lots of herbs that farmers used to use to treat their animals, and so therefore farmers are just going to have to get reacclimated to the herbs that are going to help their animals through various types of illnesses, and that's going to hurt. That should, if people aren't lazy and they educate themselves, it should hurt pharmaceutical pockets. And I think that's ultimately what we have here is this kind of cabal of tyrants, whether it's in the tech industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and they get to determine what is said, what is discussed, what is debated. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's been on a lot of podcasts lately, and it's interesting that I'm seeing him on a lot of conservative podcasts, and he's a Democrat.
Yep.
Right. But there are also people, even liberal people, who are saying, wait a minute, he's saying things that resonate with what we went through. This was terrible. This whole COVID lockdown and use and abuse of mandates as if they are law. To what extent are they going to extort people into complying? To what extent? So, that is essentially the war. I don't know if there's a different perspective by any of you.
Well, I think it's kind of like the whole electric car. If you put everybody into an electric car, you don't do what we want. We can just shut your car down.
Well, and they don't want you to. They don't want coal mining, but lithium mining and all of the ingredients necessary for electric car batteries. That type of mining, they're okay with that, but not coal. So there's really all of their positions. There's so many flaws. Yet, if you question that, then you're anti-environment, you're anti-vaccine.
Well, the only flaw there isn't is that you have Pelosi investing beforehand, before things were voted on. And you know what? I mean, Pelosi was the pinnacle example that people that kept going to. I mean, I know people, a lot of older people who have been seeing Pelosi do this for years, even before she was speaker. This has just been a way of doing business. And so we have a lot of politicians who have, when they get to that position of being voted into a position like that, that they tend to just focus on those few special interest groups who are going to continue to line their pockets. And so long as that's continuing to get lined, they are guaranteed to be in office. Because it takes money to run. I mean, and a lot of these people, once they find their niche group of folks who are willing to support them, they don't want to lose that support. Right. And in some cases, they lose. It's an all or nothing kind of thing. And all or nothing. We're hearing it every day, all or nothing. You either accept all of it, or
you get nothing.
Drags in nun uniforms and everything else. I
mean, you say that and you say drags and nuns and drag uniform, drag whatever.
Well, the whole thing is like,
but I mean, no, what I'm saying is that we never thought ever. I mean, I never thought in this lifetime I would ever see a play like the Dodgers, a huge baseball team that would accept a group of men dressed as women, calling themselves nuns, actually going after the Catholic Church. I never thought in my lifetime I would ever see that would be publicly acceptable.
Yeah, it's
horrifying.
It is horrifying, but I guess.
It's not, I mean, the whole, when you look at it for what it is, it's horrifying. But when you look at how it's been allowed to happen, what else are they going to allow to happen that we never thought we'd ever see? You know what I mean?
I just think it's interesting that you have people who claim that, we need to respect. We need to respect this group and we need to respect that group. And here, blatantly, there is a
lack of respect.
Obvious lack of respect.
Well, and I think when we can respect a group, but that doesn't mean that we have to tolerate all the behavior of every member or every subgroup of that group. And if you say it is not acceptable to go after the Catholics in mocking, more than mocking in a way with all of the different actions that this particular group, that the Dodgers are going to honor that particular group.
Well, the state of California has announced that they're going to honor them on June 5th in the Capitol, right?
Yeah, I showed you the Instagram.
And that's Newsom just being,
being
petty.
Newsom.
Yeah, he's being petty, and petty Newsom's going to go and just say shame on Dodgers and create this whole little, he's not relevant. I mean, the guy, I guess, wants to run for president at some point, but come on, look at their state.
Well, but you know what, though? Here was the thing. The Dodgers put it up there. They got a lot of backlash. They said, you know what, we're going to disinvite them, and they were okay with it. People were good. There were some people that complained, and then the Anaheim people had to come in and go, oh, well, we're going to go ahead and invite him to Anaheim
hold on. That goes back to the point I'm saying about
that's what I'm saying.
These corporations, these cabals, these... At this point, I mean, it is what it is. It might as well just be, it's a mafia of corporations who want to impose their belief systems and destroy morality and the system of morality that we have in this country, which is Judeo-Christian, and they have no problem doing it. It's like they get off on it. And you have a lot of these people out there, actors who want to dramatize this, and the Dodgers were willing to have that platform for them to do so, and then they kind of changed their mind, and then they got some. I'm guaranteed there had to have been some sort of phone call from some corporate interest of some sort saying, "You guys are going to change that back, right?"
Right.
And
exactly.
then you know what? I like Kershaw, pitcher for the Dodgers. I think he's fantastic. Although there's some people who say, "Man, he's ruined so many great games." Let's not get in that one. He's done really well with the Dodgers, and he's a Christian, and he's open, and he talks about it openly. And he's the one that they picked to go and to make that announcement that we're going to have a Christian night at the Dodgers.
But I think.
But I'm just thinking to myself, if you
is that recently? I missed that one.
Yeah,
that was recent.
recently. Yeah, but they're still missing the point. This would be the 10th annual Pride Night at Dodger Stadium. Prior to this, there's been no problem. It's the fact that they are going to honor a group who were specifically.
They're going to award them, not
award them a group that has such blatant. Anti-Catholic,
they're
faith-based.
called the Sisters of
Perpetual
Indulgence,
right? And with ceremonies, with pole dancing on a cross, with
Jesus holding a sign saying, "No guns, more come," or something like that.
And so,
the other thing too is that, and we brought this up earlier when we chatted, was that you had the nuclear waste guy that was appointed by Biden, who was accused.
Secretary of
he was the Secretary of Nuclear Waste or something. Yeah. The bald guy that dressed in dresses and heels and went to events and thought he was all that in a bag of chips, who got caught stealing people's luggage and is going to go to prison for it. He was the Washington D.C. chapter lead for the Perpetual whatever they are.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
These people are sitting in the White House. They're sitting in the White House. I'm like, and you can't tell me that Biden and his people didn't know about it, because they do a colonoscopy on your entire family for you to go to the White House. I know, because my client's sister worked in the White House. She sat her office door was next door to Vice President Pence, and they do a background check on your entire family, everybody you've known for the last 300 years. There's no way they didn't know what this character was up to. And how high up does it go? Well, it's in the White House, and now it's going to be on our sports. It's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's kind of become. I think that's why people are becoming a little bit more aware, right? Because of just how fast these things have been pushed into our lives. It's when it happens super slow, kind of like frogs in a
pond from a pot
of water. You start off cold, you warm it up slowly, and before you know it, the frog's
frog
kicking
legs.
Back, and then next thing you know, he's just floating there.
And he's kicking back and floating. He's gotten his sun down.
And but you turn that up too fast, that frog's out. He feels the heat.
I think that happened with Bud Light. Because then all of a sudden, right in a row, Bud Light, the Dodgers, Target.
Which is interesting, right? Because didn't they have that commercial with the frogs? Right?
Bud Light.
It was Budweiser.
Budweiser.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you know what people don't realize is that
wow.
Budweiser...
Well, you know what? We were frogs.
Yep.
See? We thought it was just a joke. But it's a sick joke real. On their part that we're the frogs and they're about to turn up the heat.
But here's the thing: Budweiser's is not owned by America. They were purchased by Belgium.
Yes,
like
they
15
were
years
purchased
ago.
by. But and there you go. America,
world order.
If America is to be destroyed, it's going to be destroyed in the mind first.
Yeah,
they said it right here. They said, and so if you destroy them,
Joan of Arc,
exactly. And the war is lost before a single shot is fired, and I think that's where people are. The ones that are aware of it, they're the ones that are like, look, man, I'm just gonna stock up with guns, bullets, and
take my kids out of school.
Tequila.
Tequila. No, you're gonna fill it up with tequila.
Yeah. So.
Well,
Yeah.
My question is, which is going to be the next one? What's the next big corp that's going to try to do this?
Next big what?
Next big corporation that's going to try to do this. Pepsi hasn't tried it. Coca-Cola hasn't tried it.
They're pretty much all in the same camp, though. That's the thing. We like
That's
to
what
think
I'm
of them as
saying.
if they're. This is like, and you know what? There are billionaires that are out there that don't stand for this, but they're terrified to see what effect it would have in their own businesses, their own supply chains, and
you got to give Elon Musk credit for that, because he bought Twitter and said, "I don't care," and we didn't know if he was going to make it or not.
Well, he did just put a new CEO ahead of Twitter who comes from the WEF.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Now that makes you wonder. Now, is Elon Musk really as free as you might think? I mean, all of his companies, for the most part, rely on government funding. I mean, you have SpaceX. Who's his contractor? The government, right? And Tesla, when he was here in California, I mean, he was getting massive subsidies from California.
Well, he's back.
Yeah. Well, my point is,
he wants those subsidies.
He wants those subsidies. And
Texas said no.
Now the issue though becomes that he does things well, so well so that there are plenty of people who are willing to work with him. I think he just did a deal with Ford with some of their technology on turbo fuel systems or something like some of that effect. But yeah, we have a very interesting future with energy and all this good stuff to save the earth. I think that's the new religion right now, is environmental religion. And many of those facts are not straight, just like a lot of the information on vaccines has not been straight. Even with food, a lot of people think going completely, and I'm not a dietitian, and I'm not, but I have family who went completely off of meat and focused on fruits and vegetables and ended up with brain cancer. And it was just like, well, where does this brain cancer come from? They're eating so well, they're eating, and then go to find out, my cousin who went and saw all these different experts, that there's a tremendous amount of bug killer ingredients called glyphosate, and glyphosate is something that's in a lot of our foods. So anyway, to end our night tonight, Jeff, you want to send us off to the end?
Well, and here we go.
Let's tie this chorizo up and
tie it in a knot. So it's been another wonderful Saturday night. Thank you, David, Don, and the kids of Don Carlos. And we have Ryan over here and Sal and our guests that came on and came in studio, Chris and Rudy. And we have the Dom over there and the Null over here. And
don't forget, June 2nd, Satakoy Street Elementary School, 8 a.m.
Yep. And so that is Jeffy and David with the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club radio show on AM 870 The Answer. And we'll be back next Saturday, 8 to 10. Have a great 3-day weekend.